There are a lot of characters in Evil Dead the game, and there are 4 different classes of characters in Evil Dead the game. We have supports, hunters, warriors, and leaders. In this series, I want to discuss who's the best and who's the worst out of each one of these classes of characters. So today I thought I'd start off easy by discussing the most basic and rudimentary of all the classes, the warriors. So join me as I talk about every warrior from worst to best. Before we get into the main topic, I also need to preface that everything is my opinion. So if you think Mia's the best and Henry's the worst, that's good for you. That's your opinion. Mine is different, and the other person watching might be different from yours as well. So if you have a different list of worst to best, tell me in the comments what you think is best and what's worst. I'd love to see it. And, I'd say keep it civil, but really I don't care. If you want to leave a comment that's really negative and calling me like a loser, fat, ugly loser, but, leave it in the comments, it's pretty rad, I'll take it. Any and all takers, because, hey, you still gave me watch time, so leave all the mean things you want. I don't care. So starting off our list, at number 4, the weakest warrior in the game, and I think everyone expected this, is Scotty.
That is the stupidest thing I ever heard of.
No, Scotty. It is all true. As stupid as it may sound to you, it's undeniable fact. Sorry, buddy. It's just not your day. So everyone in the community, it's very rare that we all agree upon something, but I think if there's one thing that we can all come together and agree on, it's that Scotty's unfortunately the worst warrior in the game. Now, he's not terrible, right? Everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people say he's just a bad character in general, and I don't agree with that totally. I think he's still a good character, right? He can still be a good warrior and deal a lot of damage, and he can deal a lot of damage, and I mean a lot. But we'll discuss that later. So let's just talk about his abilities and then onward. So his primary ability, called Thunder Thrust, is an ability that when activated, it releases an explosion that damages enemies in the surrounding area of Scotty. Now it has a 30-second cooldown and it does 150 damage. Now this ability, this is just kind of the main problem, right? Every other warrior has a main ability that either allows them to tank more damage, do a lot more damage. Scotty just does, he basically just does what I can only describe as chip damage to anything surrounding it. Now, 150 is a lot of damage to like a basic unpossessed unit, but this ability is pretty much pointless against a possessed unit, right? The only thing I can think, it's useful for is, other than killing basic possessed units, is that it can stun a possessed survivor. But by stun I mean it knocks them back. So if you're being like just absolutely mauled by a possessed survivor with a melee weapon, just pop this ability and then they get launched backwards, then you can either shoot at them or start a combo on them. And that's that's not a terrible use of it, but it's very limited use, and some people just never possess survivors, so it's rare that you ever use it for that. Now, the only other times it's really useful are when you're on a place like the Dagger, the Lost Pages, or the Book, right? Especially the Book. If there's a bunch of units just surrounding the Book, you can pop this ability and all of them drop below half health, so you can start attacking them and makes killing them easier for your teammates, but it's not going to do anything against the possessed unit. So it's just kind of a meh ability. It's not completely useless, but it's not that good compared to everyone else. Scotty's second ability, called Collateral Damage, allows him to do additional damage to nearby enemies within a certain radius. Now, its radius is 3 meters, which is pretty small, all things considered. And the damage dealt to nearby enemies is 13%. Now, I'm assuming that 13% means it's doing 13% of your heavy melee attack to the surrounding units. So it's taking 13% of that heavy melee attack damage and just inflicting it on the surrounding units. I don't really know how to explain it that well. My wording sucks, but it's, to be honest, I honestly forgot this is one of his abilities because of how weak it is. Now, the idea of just doing additional damage to nearby enemies while attacking without having to directly attack them isn't a bad idea, right? It can actually be very powerful, but because the radius is so small, like 3 meters is not that big of a radius, right? Most units, you know, it's usually 1 unit on top of you, and then there's a few just outside that radius, and then 1 unit attacks you, moves back, or you kill it, and then another one closes in, right? Units aren't actually like surrounding you like a pack of fucking hyenas, right? That's not how it works. And 13%, it like I said, it's only like chip damage, right? 13% is not that much unless you're doing like your final hit in a combo with like a legendary weapon, so you're doing like over 1,000 damage. Only then is 13% like actually like meaningful, but that's a very rare circumstance that you do that, right? You have to do a full combo and then a heavy attack at the end to do over 1,000 damage with a melee weapon with a warrior, so it's not really useful, right? This ability, I think, could definitely be buffed. Same with the last ability, I forgot to mention that. Both these abilities should receive like a bit of fixing because they're just really weak and make Scotty, you know, just so much more looked over than he already is. Scotty's third and his second best ability, in my opinion, is exposure therapy. What this skill does is reduce Scotty's fear per kill. Now, this is a very good ability for early game, middle game, and late game, right? What's more dangerous than a possessed hunter? A possessed warrior, of course. And another really great thing about this is it reduces your chances of being found early game by fear. Now, the worst thing that can happen in the early game is your fear maxes out and then you're found, right? It's a very good way to get found in the beginning and have your ass kicked. So keeping it on the down low is very good, and this ability just makes it easier to keep your fear in check, right? So if you're at a place like the pages or the dagger or the dark ones, you can keep killing a bunch of demons so you can keep that fear down at all times, and you know, you're just keeping your fear in check without having to use a campfire. And you know, that's very helpful. It's a very helpful ability. Now there are better fear reducing abilities out there, much better ones, but for one like this that's just so easy to use and doesn't, you know, take up your main ability slot, you know, it's pretty good. I like this ability. Scotty's final and best ability is his weapon mastery in the lumberjack axe. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, right, with this ability because it's very simple. Now, the lumberjack axe is tied for best melee damage with the sword and the chainsaw, so having even more damage than that is fantastic. So Scotty, even with a common axe, can still do an insane amount of damage, right, like 200 in a heavy attack, and he can reach even higher with a full combo. It is crazy. You can be doing all kinds of crazy damage, especially with the right character tree build. You can just wreck demons easily. So that's the end of this character. That's all the abilities discussed. So the cons, I already kind of covered them with the abilities, right? 2 of his abilities are pretty just mediocre. His other 2 are alright. Now that's just the main thing that makes Scotty so forgettable. His abilities just aren't that great. He can still do lots of damage, but if you don't have really good abilities or even just alright abilities, you're gonna be left behind. So that's it for Scotty, who is number 4.
The lost pages of the Necronomicon, transmitting a...
Moving on to number 3, and I know this is already going to start some disagreements, is Mia. Now, like I just want to preface, she's still very good, but for me, she's third. So we'll discuss why later, but for now, let's just go over her abilities real quickly. Her first ability uncontrollable. When activated, Mia cannot be possessed, but fear level increases and cannot decrease. However, when the ability deactivates, her fear level drops according to how many evil units she killed while it was active. This ability description doesn't also mention the melee damage boost she gets when this is activated, which is 20%. So a 20% melee damage boost while active. This is a very good ability. It's pretty helpful at countering being possessed, and that's one of the greatest things you can have as a warrior, right? Is countering being possessed, because like I said, a possessed warrior is very dangerous. So this is a very good counter to that. Now that it's a very basic ability, all things considered, but that's not a bad thing, right? I definitely think it's a very strong ability, and I quite like it. It's helped me many times. But moving on to her second ability, and her arguably best one and most dangerous one, and that ability is Fear Leads to Anger. So, when Mia's fear level reaches a specific threshold, her damage potential increases as her fear rises. The more scared she is, the more damage she deals. Now, this ability is insane. So if you've maxed out fear, and then you activate Mia's ability, which I talked about in my Mia build video, is, I think in total, that's a 60% boost in all damage. Not counting in character tree builds, which can bring it up even higher. Now this ability is completely busted. I mean, it is extremely powerful. It can make Mia the most heavy damage dealing warrior in the entire game. But there is one real huge negative about it, which I'll talk about later, and just one general negative about Mia in general, but we'll discuss it later. So Mia's third and most underwhelming ability, in my opinion, is Blood Rain. So what this ability does is it converts 10% of your heavy attacks damage into prolonged bleeding damage. This game's definition of prolonged is 5 seconds, and so it turns 10% of your heavy attack damage to bleed. Now the problem is just like, it's just so underperforming and underwhelming. Like it doesn't do anything, right? It's just taking that damage that you were gonna do normally and just doing it over the course of 5 seconds instead of doing it immediately, which is just like, why even bother? I think it would have made more sense just to make an ability that just adds an additional 10% of damage that occurs over 5 seconds, right? So you're doing 110%. To me, that just makes more sense. I mean, it's so pointless. It's a pointless ability. But I guess if Mia had 4 really good abilities, it would just be she'd just be the best warrior in the game, no doubt. But this is just a really pointless ability, right? So yeah, I mean, if you want to maximize it, you should just max out your heavy melee attack damage. But even then, it's still just like, you're still just doing the same damage, but it's just taking 5 seconds to do its full course. Mia's final and third best ability, I guess, is Weapon Mastery and Machete. So the machete's even faster than it already is and deals more damage. Now, this ability is not Mia's best, of course, but it's still better than Blood Rain because the machete is an alright weapon now ever since it's buff. So it's alright. And like, if you're finding like an epic or legendary machete, you can be doing some really crazy damage, but if not, then it's just kind of meh. Like, you should just choose a sword or an axe over a common or rare machete, really. Just why wouldn't you? You're gonna be doing more damage. But yeah, it's an alright ability, but not the best. But if she got a weapon mastery and like an axe or sword, it'd just be overpowered. But it's an alright ability, right? It's not terrible. It's totally usable, right? Epic and legendary machetes do a lot of damage with this ability and her other first 2 abilities, so it has its use. So it's an alright ability. Okay, now let's talk about the big problem with Mia and why she's third, right? So I said it was Scotty before, but the most dangerous thing other than a possessed hunter is a possessed warrior. And Mia is the most dangerous possessed warrior in the game. So when you get possessed as Mia, all that bonus damage you did because of your high fear is being used by the demon, which is a lot, and I mean a lot of bonus damage. You will be downing teammates with a few hits, which is just fucking insane, right? Like, this is the equivalent of a hunter with a legendary boomstick for the warrior world, right? You're gonna be absolutely fucking up your teammates. Unless your teammates know how to counter a possessed warrior by being at a distance and shooting them, or having a hunter ash, or them ganging up on you so you can't just kill one guy and go for the next. If they aren't doing that, it's pretty well game over for that team. So yeah, this is the main reason why she's third. Now, her main ability can counter it, but if you're not quick enough, it's game over. And if you use your ability and then get your fear all the way maxed out again because you just got demonic dashed, you're dead. Your team is dead. There's no way around it. They're gonna get killed unless they are super on top of things and can counter it. And because solo queue players aren't typically on top of everything, you know, they aren't sweaty tryhards, one or two are probably going to go down before they can get you out of it, or all of them will go down. So yeah, this is why Mia is dragged down. That, and she has, you know, her third and fourth ability are just kind of meh, but you know, that's really it. But her first two abilities are fantastic and turn Mia from just being another Scotty into a really powerful monster of a warrior. But wait, there's one last thing to talk about Mia real quickly, and that's, I'm going to quickly touch up on her first two abilities. Now, her first two abilities are fantastic. They're good for early to middle and to part of the late game. I say part because this ability has zero play at the end. Well, not complete zero play, but very little use at the end. So because the book, you know, when you're at the book, you receive no fear. This ability kind of is useless, right? The only time it's useful is if you pop the main ability so that your fear goes up, but it will never reach the max fear level. So you're not doing that max fear. So you're only doing a little bit of that damage, which is quite a shame because this ability is absolutely just completely powerful. Like just fucking absolutely busted for every other part of the game except the book. So because of this, this also drags down Mia because, you know, having an ability that's basically pointless at the end of the game really does hurt a character. And because her other two abilities, her third and fourth ability, aren't really good abilities to fall back on for the book portion, that also just kind of screws over Mia a bit. But she's still very good and still has a lot of versatility and usefulness throughout the rest of the game. It's just the book portion is just probably her weakest, and the book portion is probably the most important part of the game. So yeah, just because of that, she's a bit lower. Alright, so my second place warrior and my personal favorite warrior to use, Army of Darkness Ash.
Groovy.
Now, his main ability is really fucking good. It is just crazy how much it does for Ash. So what this ability does is, when activated, this ability will grant you health, fear reduction, increased damage, and reduction of damage received. So you do 30% extra damage, you receive 30% less damage, you get 250 health back, and your fear goes down by 30. Now, this ability has been nerfed since launch because it used to be completely overpowered, but it's still good now, right? There's so many instances you can just use this ability. Your fear is up and you're far away from a campfire, drink it. Health is low, you have no shemps, and your support isn't doing anything, drink it. Boss has been unleashed, drink it. You're at the book, just drink it anyway, because, you know, you gotta fucking counter those book destroyers. It's a fantastic ability that has so much versatility and is good at all times. So yeah, it's a very good ability, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so Ash's second ability, Shield Blast, is an ability that each time you lose a shield bar, it triggers an explosion damaging any nearby enemies. It does 125 damage to anything nearby you, and the range is a bit bigger than I'd say Scotty's Thunder Thrust ability is, and his, well, maybe not as big as that, but it's definitely bigger than his second ability, which is 3 meters. I'd say this is probably like 5 meters, which is a greater chance of hitting things. Now, this ability is, on paper, not too great, but when you're being attacked by a bunch of enemies at once and doing that explosion damage to everything around you, it is helpful. And especially, it really, you can really feel its power if, let's say, you're being attacked by a boss unit and you have 4 shield bars. If the boss breaks all 4 of those, that's 500 damage alone by just your shield bars, which is a good chunk of damage. Just gonna say, that's a good chunk of damage. So yeah, it's a pretty alright ability, and if you have like 4 shield bars on top of 3 extra amulets on the side, you're pretty set. You're pretty set, right? As long as like you have a Pablo or teammates who are sharing amulets, this ability is even greater. But Ash's third ability makes this ability even greater. So let's talk about that. Ash's third ability, Finish Strong, is an ability in which after Ash kills an enemy with a finisher, he recovers part of his shield bar. Now, back at the launch of this game, this ability was completely crazy. Like, you'd fill up, I'd say, like a third or maybe even half of your shield bar with just a single finisher, but nowadays it's more like a fourth of your shield bar. But it's still good, and when you factor in his second ability, it's even greater. So let's say you're, again, in a horde of demons, do a finisher on 1, do a finisher on 2, uh-oh, you get hit once, boom, explode in the face, their balance bar is almost completely lowered, hit them once, do a finisher on them, rinse and repeat. You're just continuously getting shield bar back, taking a little bit of damage, exploding in the demon's face as they hit you and break a shield bar. It's very good. And if you're unlucky and not finding any amulets, it's even better. So, yeah, free amulets. It's a very good ability. It's not as strong as it used to be, but it's still good. It's still completely useful, and I like it a lot. Right? His second and third ability complement each other so fucking well, and they work together so well. Ash's fourth and final ability is Weapon Master Chainsaw. So the chainsaw is even faster, deals even more health to balance bar, limbs, and just general unit health. And yeah, this ability is very good, right? Like Scotty's Weapon Mastery and the axe, you're doing even more damage with the most powerful weapon in the game, or tied for most powerful melee weapon. So it's very good. And when you factor in Ash's main ability of doing 30% extra damage with the Wise Man's Potion, on top of the increase of damage from Weapon Mastery and Chainsaw, your damage output is just insane, right? You're doing a lot of damage. And if you have a very good character build tree, your damage output is going to be insane with this character. Like, on average, in a good game where, like, I'm playing to the end, I'm doing, like, easily over 50k, like, every game. Every game, right? You can do so much with this character, right? This character is so versatile. You're taking less damage and you're doing more damage, right? I'd say Ash is like a good blend between like Mia and Henry the Red. Like he's just that cross between the two. And just because he's the cross between the two doesn't mean he's not good. He's so fucking great. He is the best of both worlds in terms of doing the extra damage and taking less damage. And because of that, he's my personal favorite to play, but I can acknowledge that he's not the best, but I still think he's very good. At the launch of the game, there was no doubt in my mind. At launch, he was the most powerful in the game and was easily the best, but because of his nerfs that he'd received, he's no longer the best, but he's still very good. He's absolutely amazing still. I can talk about this specific warrior forever, but I mean I probably will in a future video, but yeah. that concludes Warrior Ash. Now, I'm sure most of you weren't even surprised at this, but number one is, of course, Henry the Red. So if Mia's the warrior that does a lot of damage, Ash is the warrior that does good damage and has good damage reduction, Henry the Red's the character that takes the most damage. In fact, he takes very little damage. Everyone knows, everyone and their grandmother knows that this character is just absolutely crazy powerful. I won't say overpowered to upset anyone, but when his cooldown was on 60 seconds, just gonna say it, that guy was busted. He needed that nerf. And maybe he still does need nerfs. Who knows? He's still extremely powerful. So let's just talk about it. So his first ability, Unstoppable, goes something like this. Activating this ability temporarily prevents damage to health or shield. It lasts for 7 seconds and only has a 75-second cooldown, which is 15 seconds more than it used to be, but 75 seconds is still pretty short, all things considered. You will probably be able to use this ability at least twice on a place like the Pages or the Dagger, and even more with the Dark Ones and Book. This ability is great. It's great at all sections of the game. It allows you to do so many things like revive a teammate, resuscitate a teammate, start an objective, get into a car without taking damage. You can pop it to drink a Shemps or use all your amulets, or you can even just use it as a normal combat tool to go up to a demon and just attack them without taking damage. It's very good, and there's very little things a demon can do to counter it. The only way to counter this ability is to either demonic dash or possess someone. Back in the day, you could do a grab on them with a boss, but that doesn't work anymore, so it's a very good ability. It is the best ability a warrior has, and if it is one of the best abilities in the game, top 5 best abilities at least. Henry the Red, just because his ability alone, is one of the top 5 best characters in the game in general, right? He is completely busted. He is a fantastic character, and this isn't even all of his abilities that make him super great, right? This is just one, but all 4 of his abilities are fantastic, so let's talk about the rest of them. So Henry the Red's second ability is Shields Up. So this ability, you start the match with an additional shield bar. So you have a total of 2 at the start, and if you max out your shield, you have a total of 6, which is more than any other character in the game. Now, this alone is already very good. So having 6 shield bars throughout the entire game when you max out shield is very good. And later down the line, this ability becomes even better with buffs to the shield. And as well, if you buff the shield on your character tree, you're gonna be taking very little damage on your shields. And with the additional shield bar, it's gonna take a lot for a demon to punch through all of it. So it's just a pretty insane ability. It's very good. So Henry the Red's third ability, Rebound, is like Ash's Shield Blast ability, but arguably even greater. So when you have any shield, doesn't matter how much you can even have just like a sliver of shield left. When you get attacked, 30% of that damage inflicted on you is shot back at your attacker. So let's say there's a Necromancer basic unit who is getting boosted by a Flutist, right? Those guys can do a lot of damage. You can do 400 with a final combo of your swing, so 30% of that 400 damage is being shot back. Let's say a possessed Necromancer, flute boosted elite unit comes in for a heavy swing. Those guys do a shitload of damage. 30% of that is going straight back into their face. That's a lot of damage. That's pretty good, man. It's a very good ability, right? This ability, it's not his best, but it's still very good. So in a situation where you're being attacked by a horde of units, a lot of the damage is being shot back and forth back at everything that's attacking you, and it's just a very good ability. It's not his best ability, but that doesn't mean it's bad, because Henry the Red, all 4 of his abilities are very good, and this is no exception. It's a fantastic ability. So let's talk about his final one now, shall we? Henry the Red's final ability, Battle Hardened. It increases your maximum health and shield bar by 10%. So your shield and your health bar has a 10% boost. So if you factor in a good character build tree that maximizes your health and shield bar and damage reduction like mine does, you take very little damage. You're receiving just about 0 damage. And I mean it. You will be taking almost what feels like no damage. Unless you're being hard focused by a possessed unit, you're going to be taking so much damage and you're going to be just fine because of it, right? It's going to feel like flies or, just land on your skin, right? It's like the wind is wafting at you. You're going to be taking nothing. This is just the icing on the cake, the cherry on top of the fucking brick shithouse that is Henry the Red, who is already very good at taking no damage. It's just insane, right? Nothing's more annoying. Like, the most annoying warrior to a demon is gonna be Henry the Red, and it's gonna be that forever, just because of how much damage he can take. His damage reduction is just fucking insane. That's the main reason why he's so great. And the other greatest thing about him is he really has no cons, right? The only con I can think of is that maybe he does less damage than every other warrior. Like, sure, he has the lowest damage output of every warrior, but if you maximize your balance bar damage, which you should be with this character, doesn't really matter, right? You're going to be taking all that damage from that demon, and then you're just going to be dishing out a bunch of balance bar damage that they can't do anything about, right? All they can do is just mash buttons hoping they can get you below half health, but sucks for them because you have 6 shields, maxed out health. They'll be lucky if they even get to 1 fucking bar of shield before you completely break their balance bar. It's just insane. His abilities are just crazy, and he's the best warrior in the game. Like, no doubt, right? Is he the most fun? Probably not, right? But he's still very good. He's good at every stage of the game, especially the book, right? You really should, tanking that damage, body blocking the book with this character is a very viable strategy and a very good one. He's just a crazy character that demons will cry about till the end of time. I'll find him annoying every single time I play demon, but that's the way it is. So yeah, that's all the warriors. Up next, I plan on talking about the hunters, talking about who's the worst and who's the best for them. And yeah, so join me next time when I talk about that. I'll see you around.
If you're hearing my voice, you have triumphed over the Kandarian demon and saved our world.
Mankind reigns triumphant! A new kingdom shall be born!